we've got another metagame report from the OCG here, which is metagame number 5 of the January 1st format. And where we left off last time was with the release of Alliance Insight. And the first week after Alliance Insight, or the first 2 weeks after Alliance Insight, showed a huge dominance of Malice or Ryziel to the point where they didn't even mention another deck on this page, right? Like, this is the breakdown where they usually give you a little bit of an idea of what these decks look like and so on and so forth. And like, they didn't even bother to include anything but Malice or Ryziel last time. However, the numbers on Malice and Ryziel have gone down a little bit, which I'm happy to see, because I thought before Alliance Insight, the OCG was actually in a state that looked kind of fun, barring Maxi. But like, the fact that they had like Orcust as a viable deck, Blue Eyes as a viable deck, Ryziel and Malice also of course in the mix, it felt kind of cool. And the fact that like those two decks just took over all completely alone after Alliance Insight was a little sad. But it seems like with this week, or with this report, we've got people maybe going back a little bit to those other decks from previously, because I'm pretty sure Malice last time was definitely higher than 29%. Remember, Ryziel in the OCG has been hit pretty significantly by limiting. They only have one bonfire and they only have one X Ryziel, whereas Malice is just completely unhit. So no wonder that Malice is dominating in the OCG, especially because Alliance Insight is giving the deck further support. So Malice is still doing pretty well, still at the top of the thing. But Blue Eyes, I think Blue Eyes and White Forest and Orcust were all lower last time. Ryziel also making a comeback here to the OCG format, and I'm saying a comeback because before Alliance Insight, Ryziel was very unpopular because of 1x, 1 bonfire. Of course, the new main deck monster helps out Ryziel a lot, but we're going to take a look at some of these example deck lists here. So this is Malice. I'm not going to dwell on Malice too much. I feel like I've spoken my piece on Malice. I do think the deck is getting very, very powerful support in Alliance Insight with the new Malice main deck monster. And they're also getting a lot more Ignister Cyberse combo-y with the new, what is it, Ignister support, I think. So, yeah, look, everyone has their opinion on this already, so I don't need to voice mine again. You know how I feel about this. Ryziel is changing a little bit because they are playing the new, I forgot its name, the new level 4 Ryziel, which on summon sets a Ryziel spell trap from the deck. This is obviously pretty cool because it lets you access cards like Ryziel Cross even when your duo drive gets negated, which is pretty decent. And of course, in order to circumvent consistency issues with just one bonfire, they are resorting to a whole bunch of other searcher spells. They've got 7th Tachyon, which is probably one of the most OCG semi-limits that's ever happened, because there's literally 3 other spells over here that search 7th Tachyon. So putting this card to 2 essentially does nothing because it goes from 6 copies to 5 copies. Also, they are just replacing, in this list, they are just replacing the 3rd copy of 7th Tachyon with Small World, which both of these cards are relatively similar in quality, because both of them are basically a Rhoda for any of your Ryziels at the cost of going -1. So, yep. That is that. Other than that, this deck, I mean, not much we need to say about this here, because I feel like everyone who's playing the TCG at the moment has a pretty good understanding of what this deck does and how it functions. And the good thing is that it doesn't really, the cards that they're playing that we don't have, they don't really change the core functionality of Ryziel, right? Like, all you need to know is like 7th Tachyon is basically another version of Bonfire, but a little bit weaker. It's basically it's more comparable to Small World, but it's essentially just consistency cards. It's just a bunch of Rhodas. And then they got the new main deck monster, which on summon lets you set a Ryziel spell trap. But other than that, it just works exactly the same as the pure Ryziel decks we have in the TCG right now. So it's very comparable. But the thing I mostly wanted to look at was, because we are actually we're recording this, or we're doing this right now on the day that the Blue Eyes structure deck is releasing for the TCG. So I want to take a quick look at the Blue Eyes deck, and I'm happy they included it because it is, as you can see up here, it is back to 13.5%, which is a sizable chunk. You know, it's not quite up there with Ryzeal and Malice, but look, almost. That's a pretty sizable chunk of the metagame for Blue Eyes here. And this is what it looks like. So I'm gonna try to get my hands on Blue Eyes structure decks as soon as I can, so that we can make some content on it at the start of next week. But for now, we're going to take a look at what they're doing in the OCG. Whether this is exactly how you're going to play this deck in the TCG remains to be seen. Blue Eyes. The side deck is currently overly packed due to having to run 2 sets of different tech cards against Malice and Ryzeal. Okay, so what is that? Lancia's... Okay, you see the same thing here, right? Like, they are very much preparing for Malice with Lancia, Sanctum, and Scythe, I guess, is also good against it. People are even main decking a Lancia, which I'm wondering right now, why is there 1 Lancia in this deck? Because can they search it? Because that's what I'm thinking about right now. Because I saw it in the Ryzeal deck up here, and I'm like, okay, 1 Lancia I guess makes sense because this deck can search it, right? This deck can search it. Can this deck search it? The new Ancient Fairy? Ooh, wait. Oh, does that add a Light Fairy? Wait, hold up. Ancient Fairy Life Dragon. Okay, this is a light level 8 dragon, which I'm sure the Blue Eyes deck can make. If this card is synchro summoned, you can draw a card, or if the World of Spirits is on the field, add a light beast, plant, or fairy, or Eternal Sunshine from deck to your hand instead. Wait, do you play the World of Spirits? Was that here? The World of Spirits. What is that card? The World of Spirits. That's not in the deck, though. This is the World of Spirits. This is the field spell that they gave the new Ancient Fairy cards. They don't. Okay, so theoretically, this card can search Lancia, but in this build, it cannot. So they've just decided to play a 1 of Lancia. I'm just trying to clarify. I'm just interested because normally when you play a 1 of, it means it's somewhat searchable or whatever, which is what I thought with the Ryzeal list. But okay. It is 1 to just draw it off of Fuvalos or Maxi, I guess. Okay, yeah, fair enough. All right. Maybe it could also just be like they didn't have side deck space. Like they wanted to put all these cards in their side deck and they needed 1 more, so they just moved it to the main deck, whatever. But okay, I was just trying to see if I was missing something. Specific techs, such as Artifact Lancia, Meowl's Perulia Droll, are relatively ineffective against Blue Eyes, or they could be played around to minimize their impact. Blue Eyes is also able to run 16 or more hand traps in the main deck to keep up with disrupting Ryzeal and Malice. So this, I think, is a very good description of Blue Eyes and Blue Eyes' success. Blue Eyes is the perfect example, I think, of a mid-range deck that really benefits off of being good into the non-engine that people play to keep up with Malice and Ryzeal, right? Like, you're not going to completely lose the game to any of the Molcharmies, or even, I think even Maxi is like not as bad for the Blue Eyes deck, even though Maxi can still hurt it. But it's like the Blue Eyes deck just benefits off of being a more down to the ground, mid-rangey deck. Ancient Fairy Life Dragon is a new light dragon synchro monster from Alliance Insight and is an option to be special summoned by Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon's third effect special summons a light dragon synchro from your extra deck in defense position, and Ancient Fairy Life Dragon's effect allows it to attack in defense position and apply their defense for damage calculation, giving the deck an extra push of damage. Ooh. Wait. Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon. What's that? Can it tag out on both turns? It can. Okay. Neither player can special 2 or more monsters at the same time. Once per turn, you can negate an effect that's summoned in a graveyard. You can tribute this synchro summoned card, special summon a light dragon synchro in defense, but destroy it during the end phase. Oh, okay. So if you play Ancient Fairy Life Dragon, which is a 3300 defender, it can attack in defense position, which means that 1 Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon is 5,800 damage. 5,800 damage. Because you are forced to summon in defense, which is that's pretty neat, honestly. That's pretty neat. Unfortunately, that's not going to be a thing for us in the TCG on release right now, but that is a pretty cool combo to keep in mind. Because I'm sure the Blue Eyes deck is going to still be intact when Alliance Insight comes around. I don't see them hitting that on the ban list at any point. Maybe ever. They might never hit it because it's not that broken. So yeah, that's a cool thing. That's a cool thing. All right. We're going to take a closer look at Blue Eyes in the upcoming week once I have my hands on these structure decks. In terms of what I think, how this deck is going to translate to the TCG, because I feel like that's a question that people are asking a lot right now. You know, everyone knows the deck is successful in the OCG, but will it be successful for us? My personal opinion on it is that it's going to be a viable option. I don't think it's going to rival Malice or Ryziel for a top spot in the meta right now. Because I think this is a pretty good comparison here. Malice and Ryziel are definitely the top two in the OCG format right now. And the only reason why Blue Eyes was so successful on a previous format before Ryziel got support was because Ryziel was hit relatively harsh on the OCG ban list. Maybe we can let's go back maybe and look at an OCG report before Alliance Insight. I think this might be one of those. Yeah. So on this one, you can see how Orchist, Blue Eyes, Malice, and Ryziel were like the biggest four, with Blue Eyes and Orchist being a decent chunks bigger than Malice and Ryziel. So basically, this is the weak version of Ryziel, right? This is the version of Ryziel that only has, if they even show it here, they do. This is the version of Ryziel that only has one Bonfire and one X and no new cards yet from Alliance Insight. So, in that environment, Blue Eyes was able to perform relatively well, which is interesting because at this point, Malice is basically as powerful as it is in the TCG right now. This is essentially TCG Malice, right? Even the list that they're using is relatively similar, right? Like they're using a bunch of Bestials, they're using, and then the rest is just like non-engine, right? Like this is a comparable list of Malice to what they're doing in the TCG. It even has Griffin and a Bow, a Q, like this is very much comparable to current TCG Malice. And so I think it is worth noting that in this environment, the Blue Eyes deck was able to overtake the Malice deck in terms of representation. I think the biggest deciding factor for whether Blue Eyes is going to be able to perform for us is how good is its matchup into the Ryziel deck that we have. Because our Ryziel deck is more powerful than this one. Because it also has Fiendsmith as well, right? That people are using. And so that's a hard thing to contest, of course. So I think for us, it's going to look more like this. I think Ryziel and Malice are going to be a decent chunk over Blue Eyes. I do think Blue Eyes is going to be a popular deck. And I do think Blue Eyes is going to be... Blue Eyes is going to be good. I don't think it's going to be the best deck. I think it's going to be like a tier 2 deck. Definitely a viable option, though. So I think that's where Blue Eyes is going to stand. For now, I think. I think the deck is capable, and I like its playstyle too. I'm a big fan of like the mid-rangey approach that the deck has, and like how the combos are decent into some of the charmies and all that kind of stuff. I like it, but it's definitely got its weaknesses when compared to Yugioh Ryziel at full power with access to the Fiendsmith engine as well, and so all that kind of stuff. I can see Blue Eyes doing well, maybe one top if they're lucky. I don't think that's true. I think that's underselling it. I think it's better than that, but I don't think it's crazy powerful. I do think the Primate cards are also still very underplayed. So that is OCG format right now. I am aware there's a new OCG metagame report. However, there's not much I can really add to it. The only notable thing, literally the only notable thing, the OCG is literally headed towards a format where this pie chart is just getting smaller and smaller, right? Like the other section is getting smaller and smaller. The number of different decks we're seeing in this overlay is smaller and smaller every week, it feels like. Literally, the only decks even worth mentioning at the moment next to Ryziel and Malice are Orcust, White Forest, and Blue Eyes, which we already knew. Those were the 3 viable decks next to those 2. But to be honest, this is looking like, with the support from Alliance Insight, we're headed into a literal Ryziel and Malice format. Basically, almost nothing else. And it looks like the OCG is heading into a direction where the next ban lists have to be massive for this. The only other notable thing about this one, I think, is that it's Ryziel overtaking Malice again, which I think the last couple of weeks, it was the other way around. But that's literally it, right? That is literally it. The Ryziel lists have not really changed. This has cemented itself as the golden standard for Ryziel, you know? And I think the same is also true for Malice. I'm looking at these and there's not much of a difference over the course of the last couple of weeks. You know, there's not that much going on anymore. They're showing you a Ryziel deck, they're showing you a Malice deck, and then it's the conclusion. Ryziel and Malice have a dominating presence on the OCG metagame. Ryziel and Malice deck builds are becoming homogenous, possibly close to reaching their optimal build, which is basically what I just said, and there's not that much to talk about here. Unfortunately, I wish there was something crazy coming out of Alliance Insight, but it just looks like Alliance Insight has unfortunately just further strengthened the position for both Ryziel and Malice. There's literally not much for me to react to from this perspective.